So according to Buzz Radar, it's become apparent that social media mentions of F1 has dropped by 70.2% in the first 5 months of 2023 compared to the same time frame of 2022. There was also a shift in commonly used words on social media, with terms like boring and annoying now dominating the F1 context, replacing previous popular words such as exciting and interesting. F1 saw a social media boom in 2022 thanks to the battle that we saw between Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton in 2021. And following currently a quite predictable 2023 season, there's been a 46.29% drop in new followers and a big reduction in reach. By the way, that's the end of the stats and numbers rubbish, I promise. So basically what this means is that the reduced number of people who are left talking about F1 on social media are mostly saying negative things. And that's a bit blown out of proportion, I think, but this is just what's been reported. Firstly, am I bothered by these stats? Not really. And secondly, I'm not surprised by this at all. I kind of saw it coming. So clearly it was a bloody genius decision to start a brand new YouTube channel about F1 the other month. A bit like when Homer invested in pumpkins after Halloween. Please subscribe to the channel. I'm in this for the long haul now, so please stay up to date with any new content. Why is it that businessy and suity people are always amazed and stunned that there's been a sharp decline after a sudden increase in numbers? It always happens, and they never just learn this is how it goes. It's like if you're in the flat cap and mustache grooming business and you are stunned because awareness has dropped since Peaky Blinders is no longer relevant or trendy. With Drive to Survive coming along and building numbers for a few years, this was then combined with the battle we saw with Max and Lewis in 2022. And now that we're in the 2023 season and things are a bit more predictable, the numbers have fallen off a tiny bit, but ultimately I think F1 is now in a better place and a more sustainable place as well. I actually drew this graph to help you visualize this. Yeah. The issue is, rather than facing facts about trends and fads and how fickle people are, the F1 machine has now pointed the blame at Verstappen and Red Bull for making F1 and the show apparently boring. Now, this isn't Max and Red Bull's fault, but ultimately, if you're new to F1, I've got news for you, and you're not going to like this, but F1, on the vast majority, on the surface, appears to be dull. We've had seasons of huge dominations before in the past when social media didn't exist or was in its infancy, and those who suffered were the print publications who were pushing this story at the time. I mean, how many people didn't buy a copy of Autosport because of all the predictability? Look at 1988 with Prost and Senna. Now, before you say how dare you, in 1998, these two were current drivers. They weren't proper full-blown legends yet. They won every race apart from one, and that is just a recipe for a boring season. 02 and 04 were smack bang in the Michael Schumacher Ferrari world domination area where they were just carving up absolutely everything. It was a very dull time to be an F1 fan, and I remember it well. And then you had 2011 and 13 where it was the Vettel and Red Bull show. And again, Vettel wasn't this likable, lovable driver that he is now. Back then, he was this finger-waggling, smug driver that everyone loved to hate. And then we had the Mercedes years, and now we are currently in the Max and Red Bull saga. Now, you may not agree with me, but whoever wins the race, okay, it's interesting, of course it is, but I find the bulk of the drama and the interest and anything exciting that happens is in the rest of the grid, you know, the midfield, the back, or, you know, just behind first, second and third. All the seasons I mentioned just there, where there was one driver or car dominating, there was tons of interesting and intriguing things happening throughout the rest of the grid for that season. But you just had to work a little bit harder to get invested in these stories and follow them through and see the value in them. Work that is too hard for newer or bandwagon fans that makes them switch off the TV or unfollow on social media. And it's this hard work that makes F1 fans unique, because no matter how predictable or dull the season appears to be, we will find the good and try and find the interest in any bits of drama that is happening. In 2023, it's exciting just to know who is going to finish in the points. I mean, the first and perhaps second position is sewn up, but the rest of it is just so tight at the moment. And as an Alex Albon fan, I'll be just ecstatic if he finishes in the points. The deficit that F1 is showing on social media right now is probably just the people who just cared about whoever wins, and if it is the same person winning week out, that's boring. They unfollow and they leave. And I'd say probably the sport is maybe better off without them. But this run of Max and Red Bull currently, it will end. All domination runs end, and then once it does, we'll move on to the next thing. But ultimately, these dull, unpredictable seasons that we experience are broken up by exciting and intriguing ones, so it kind of evens itself out. Now, a lot of people discovering F1 for the first time were kind of spoilt, I think, by Netflix's Drive to Survive, which showed F1 as a non-stop barrage of drama, excitement, ups and downs, the whole thing. And it was lapped up over the years, it was all over social media, it was new, it was trendy, and it snowballed and got more and more popular as the years went by. Now, granted, the material Netflix had to work on from F1 between 2018 and 2022 was pretty good. This created new interest, all the figures increased, and everyone got bonuses. Yay! But I'm not sure that's going to last, especially with the current season. In my mind, Drive to Survive is like the greatest hits or essential tracks of a band. Take the Rolling Stones, for example. If you listen to their greatest hits, every song is a banger, they go straight to your heart, you know all the words, happy days. Now, the actual F1 season, start to finish, 23 races, is more like the Rolling Stones album catalogue. The big famous hits that we all know and love are still there, but there's a lot of rubbish and a lot of filler that you have to wade through to try and find the good in those individual songs. Exactly the same as the majority of races in an F1 season. It's dullness broken up by moments of massive excitement and massive drama. And when those moments of massive drama and excitement happen, it makes it even greater. And that is what makes the sport great, and I'll stick with it through thick and thin. Now, Netflix have said that they're going to try and bring a lot more realism and some less contrived stories into the next series of Drive to Survive, but with the current season, they might have a hell of a job doing that. Unlike other sports where fans support their own team, like it's Man United, Chicago Bulls, or Dallas Cowboys, or someone like that, I feel like F1 fans support the sport first and then go towards their team or driver that they follow. So I'm not worried or disheartened by this current drop. It's probably caused many people working in F1 to receive criticism or whatever from their managers, but it's outside of their control. And if you're one of these people that's being criticized, it's not your fault. If anything, after all of this, I think F1 has now stabilized into a healthy and sustainable position, better than it was before when social media came into F1. And now that the supposed fad and bandwagon fans are showing less interest and are kind of disappearing, I think you could make the argument that F1's fan base has now become more concentrated than in previous years. This could be a positive or a negative, but yeah, it is what it is. F1 will always sell tickets, it will always sell merch, and will have its core audience, just as long as F1 holds up its side of the bargain. But I think this drop that was reported has allowed F1 to try and avoid the so-called NASCAR effect. So the NASCAR effect is when you alienate your core fans by pushing and steering everything towards these fad and new bandwagon fans that you've got. So your core audience is gone, the bandwagon fans and fad fans just move on to the next trendy thing. So then at the end of the day, you're left with nobody. And then nobody is interested in your product. And you can argue that NASCAR is actually still suffering from this. Look, I'm sure there are people financially invested in this that are going to see this whole thing as an absolute catastrophe. Liberty Media are probably going mental, but this is just F1 doing its thing and normalizing and just leveling off. I'm sure there could be another big spike as we head into the 24 and 25 seasons where there could be an open championship fight, especially if, Mercedes or McLaren or Aston come into the field. Or it could be much the same again with Max and Red Bull, but as every F1 fan knows, you just have to take the rough with the smooth. It's a subject that has a lot of people talking right now, so please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again soon.